Welcome back to USA Coin Auctions, coin collectors and treasure hunters. Today we are going deep into one of the most exciting areas of American numismatics, the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered and the rare 1-cent coins that can command extraordinary prices in the collector market. A Lincoln penny may look like an ordinary 1-cent coin, but certain dates, mint marks, varieties, errors, and exceptionally preserved examples can become highly desirable collectibles. Some Lincoln cents have sold for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even more than $1 million at major auctions. Today we are looking at 5 spectacular Lincoln penny varieties that have captured the attention of serious collectors and auction bidders around the world. The important thing to remember is that extraordinary value comes from a combination of rarity, authenticity, variety, condition, historical importance, and collector demand. So if you have an old Lincoln cent collection, this is exactly the kind of information that can make your next coin search much more exciting. Let's get started. Number 1. The 1966 Lincoln penny is one of those fascinating American coins that can look completely ordinary at first glance but becomes much more interesting when collectors examine its date, design, condition, strike, surfaces, and possible varieties. In this video, we are taking a detailed look at the Lincoln penny dated 1966 with no mint mark, especially a coin described as being in very fine condition. The 1966 Lincoln cent belongs to an important period in United States coinage, and examples with attractive preservation continue to attract attention from collectors who enjoy Lincoln cents and coins from the 1960s. When a coin combines an interesting historical period, strong eye appeal, recognizable design, and an unusually high level of preservation, collectors can become much more interested in adding it to their collections. The exciting part of searching through older pennies is that the date alone is only the beginning. Serious collectors look closely at every detail because valuable opportunities can sometimes come from exceptional condition, unusual varieties, minting characteristics, or certified high-grade examples. So, if you have a 1966 Lincoln penny sitting in an old collection, coin jar, inherited group, or box of United States cents, this is a perfect coin to examine carefully before deciding what it may be worth. Throughout this video, we will explore the history of the 1966 Lincoln penny, its unique design features, the importance of its condition, collector demand, market considerations, and why extraordinary examples can attract substantially more attention than ordinary circulated pieces. To understand the appeal of the 1966 Lincoln penny, we need to go back to the history of the Lincoln cent itself. The Lincoln cent was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. The obverse features the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, along with the date. The reverse design used during the 1966 period features the traditional Lincoln Memorial, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, with 1 cent prominently displayed. By the 1960s, the Lincoln cent had already become a deeply established part of American everyday commerce. The year 1966 was also an interesting period in United States coinage because the country was experiencing major changes in its circulating coinage. During the mid-1960s, rising metal prices created significant pressure on the traditional composition of U.S. coins, leading to important changes in denominations such as dimes and quarters. The Lincoln cent, however, continued to use its copper-based composition during this era. This historical background gives the 1966 cent an important place within the story of American coinage and makes it particularly interesting to collectors who specialize in 20th-century United States cents. One of the first things collectors notice about the 1966 Lincoln penny is the absence of a mint mark. For this particular date, the lack of a mint mark is not automatically an error. In 1966, Lincoln cents were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, and Philadelphia coins traditionally carried no mint mark. This is an important detail because newer collectors sometimes see a missing mint mark and immediately assume that the coin is an unusual minting mistake. With the 1966 Lincoln cent, however, the no mint mark format is part of the normal issue. That does not make the coin uninteresting. In fact, the real excitement comes from examining everything else about the piece. Collectors can study the sharpness of Lincoln's portrait, the clarity of Liberty, the date digits, the details around the Lincoln Memorial, the lettering, the rim, and the overall surface quality. A very fine example should show considerable detail while also displaying the signs of circulation expected for that grade. The better the remaining design detail and the more attractive the surfaces, the more appealing the coin can become to collectors. A particularly attractive example with strong eye appeal can stand out among ordinary circulated pieces, especially when it is properly authenticated and graded by a respected professional grading service. The condition of a 1966 Lincoln penny is one of the most important factors when discussing collector interest and potential market value. A coin described as very fine generally retains a substantial amount of its original design detail despite having circulated. On the Lincoln portrait, important features remain visible, while the highest points of the design show the expected evidence of wear. The reverse can also retain recognizable details in the Lincoln Memorial and surrounding lettering. For collectors, condition creates an enormous difference between a coin that has spent decades heavily circulated and an example that has preserved a remarkable amount of detail. This is why experienced collectors do not simply ask, "What year is the penny?" They ask, "What grade is the penny? What is the surface quality? How strong is the strike? And does it have anything unusual?" A 1966 cent with beautiful natural color, clean surfaces, attractive luster, sharp details, and excellent overall eye appeal can be much more exciting than a typical example. Even when a coin is described as very fine, careful examination can reveal characteristics that deserve professional evaluation. Collectors also pay close attention to original surfaces because originality can contribute significantly to the appeal of a coin. The collector demand surrounding the 1966 Lincoln penny comes from several directions. Lincoln cents are among the most widely collected United States coins, and many collectors build complete date collections, while others focus on varieties, errors, high-grade examples, or specific periods. Because the 1966 cent belongs to the historic Lincoln Memorial cent series, it naturally has a place in the collections of people who enjoy assembling coins by date. The coin is also affordable and accessible enough that many collectors can encounter it without needing access to an advanced numismatic. Number 2. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny is a fascinating piece of American coinage that continues to attract attention from collectors, especially when an example is found in genuinely uncirculated condition with strong original color, sharp details, and excellent overall preservation. At first glance, this is a 1-cent coin, but collectors know that the story behind a coin can be much more important than its face value. The 1961 D. Lincoln cent was produced at the Denver Mint and carries the small D mint mark beneath the date, identifying its origin. While millions of these cents were struck, truly attractive high-grade examples can become much more interesting in the collector market. Professional auction records show just how dramatically condition can influence value. PCGS records an auction result of $4,406.25 for a 1961 D. Lincoln cent graded MS67, while Great Collections records a 1961 D. red example reaching $6,468.75 in MS67 plus RD. So, if you have a 1961 D penny that looks exceptionally fresh, bright, sharply detailed, and almost untouched, you may be looking at a coin worth investigating much more closely. In today's video, we are going to explore the history, design, special characteristics, condition, collector demand, potential market values, and the important details that can separate an ordinary old penny from a highly desirable collectible. To understand why the 1961 D. Lincoln penny is interesting, we need to go back to the history of the Lincoln cent and the period in which this coin was produced. The Lincoln cent design had already become one of the most recognizable American coin designs in history. The obverse features the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse of the 1961 D cent features the Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo. The Lincoln Memorial reverse had been introduced only a few years earlier, beginning in 1959, making the 1961 D part of the early era of the Memorial cent series. The Denver Mint produced approximately 1,753,266,700 examples of the 1961 D cent, according to PCGS, making it a major production issue of its year. That large production figure is important because it explains why the date itself does not automatically make every 1961 D penny rare. Instead, Collectors become especially interested when an example combines the correct date and mint mark with outstanding preservation, original red coloration, exceptional strike quality, and a high certified grade. This is where the story becomes much more exciting for collectors searching through old coin collections, inherited coin jars, rolls, estate collections, and forgotten boxes of American cents. Now let's take a closer look at the unique features of this remarkable penny. The 1961 D. Lincoln cent is a copper alloy 1-cent coin measuring approximately 19 millimeters in diameter and weighing about 3.11 grams. PCGS lists the regular strike 1961 D cent as a 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc composition, with a plain edge. On the front, you will see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, along with the date 1961. Directly below the date is the small D mint mark, and this is one of the first details you should check when examining your coin. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial dominates the design, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and 1 cent. For collectors, the visual quality of these details matters enormously. A beautiful uncirculated example can show strong lettering, crisp architectural details on the memorial, clean fields, attractive surfaces, and vibrant original copper red color. When all of these characteristics come together, the coin can become significantly more desirable than an ordinary circulated example. One of the most important words in this entire discussion is uncirculated. When collectors describe a coin as uncirculated, they are generally referring to a piece that retains its original mint state appearance and shows no meaningful evidence of normal circulation wear. However, not every uncirculated coin has the same value. Professional grading separates coins into different levels, and the difference between a lower mint state grade and an exceptionally high mint state grade can be enormous. This is particularly important with the 1961 D. Lincoln cent because many examples were saved by collectors and dealers when they were new. PCGS notes that many mint state examples were set aside at the time, meaning attractive pieces can still be found today, but truly exceptional coins with smooth surfaces, vivid color, and outstanding eye appeal are much more exciting. For a collector examining a 1961 D penny, look closely at Lincoln's cheek and jaw, the open fields around the portrait, the lettering, the date, the mint mark, and the reverse design. Coins with fewer marks, stronger luster, better strike characteristics, and excellent original color have the greatest potential to stand out. A coin that looks brilliant red rather than dark brown can be especially appealing because professional grading services distinguish color designations such as brown, and red on copper cents. This brings us to rarity and collector demand, which are two of the biggest factors behind the potential value of a 1961 D. Lincoln penny. It is important to understand that the 1961 D is not considered rare simply because it is more than 6 decades old. Its substantial mintage means that collectors must look beyond the date and mint mark. The real excitement comes from the condition rarity of exceptional examples. PCGS lists a substantial number of surviving examples, but the population becomes much more interesting as the grade rises. For the 1961 D red issue, PCGS reports an estimated survival of about 50,000 pieces in MS65 or better and gives the issue a higher rarity designation at that level than at lower grades. This is why collectors searching for a valuable 1961 D penny should not simply ask, "Is it from 1961?" Instead, they should ask, "How well preserved is it? How strong is its original color? How clean are the surfaces? How sharp is the strike? And how high could it grade?" Those questions can completely change. Number 3. The 1965 Lincoln penny without a mint mark continues to attract attention from collectors because it belongs to an important period when the United States Mint was changing its coin production practices and dealing with enormous demand for circulating coins. At first glance, this penny may look like an ordinary 1-cent piece, but collectors know that the year, the absence of a mint mark, the condition, the color, the strike, and especially whether the coin is a regular circulation issue or a special mint set example can make a major difference. The 1965 Lincoln cent is therefore an exciting coin to examine closely, particularly when you come across an example described as being in very rare or exceptionally preserved condition. According to numismatic records, Philadelphia-produced 1965 cents were struck without a mint mark, with approximately 1.497 billion regular cents produced, while the mint also produced 2.36 million special mint set cents. This combination of history, design, condition, and collector interest makes the 1965 penny a wonderful subject for anyone interested in valuable coins. To understand why the 1965 Lincoln penny is so interesting, we need to travel back to the middle of the 1960s, a period of tremendous change in American coinage. The United States was experiencing a major coin shortage, and the public was saving coins in large quantities. The mint responded by increasing production and changing the way certain coins were manufactured and distributed. During 1965, the Lincoln cent continued to carry the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse displayed the Lincoln Memorial design created by Frank Gasparo. The regular 1965 cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and therefore carries no mint mark. This is important because collectors sometimes see a missing mint mark and assume that something unusual happened to the coin, but on a normal 1965 Philadelphia cent, the absence of a mint mark is exactly what should be expected. The historical significance becomes even more fascinating because 1965 was the first year of the special mint set program that continued through 1967, and these coins received special preparation intended to give them a more attractive finish than ordinary circulation pieces. For collectors, this gives the 1965 Lincoln cent two fascinating areas to explore: the regular no mint mark circulation issue and the much more collectible special mint set examples. One of the most recognizable features of the 1965 Lincoln penny is its classic Lincoln Memorial design. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right, surrounded by the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, with the date 1965 positioned prominently below his portrait. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial dominates the center of the design, accompanied by United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. The coin has a plain edge and measures approximately 19 millimeters in diameter. PCGS records the 1965 special mint set cent at 3.11 grams and identifies its composition as 95% copper and 5% zinc. These details are valuable to collectors because examining the coin as a complete object is much more important than simply looking at the date. A sharp portrait, strong lettering, clean fields, attractive original color, well-defined memorial details, and an overall impressive appearance can all contribute to making a particular example stand out. When collectors search through large numbers of Lincoln cents, coins with exceptional eye appeal naturally receive more attention, especially when they combine strong preservation with desirable characteristics. The condition of a 1965 Lincoln penny can be one of the most exciting parts of the collecting story. A circulated coin can show signs of contact and handling, while a beautifully preserved coin can retain much more of its original surface quality. Collectors pay particular attention to coins with strong details, attractive red coloration, smooth surfaces, and minimal marks. The distinction becomes even more important when discussing special mint set examples. PCGS explains that special mint set coins from 1965 through 1967 were produced with special care and generally have a nicer finish than circulation strike coins. The 1965 SMS cents can also display cameo and deep cameo finishes, which are particularly desirable among collectors. This is where the idea of a rare condition becomes especially powerful. The date alone does not automatically make every 1965 no mint mark penny a high-value rarity. Instead, exceptional preservation, special strike characteristics, color designation, certification, and grade can transform an ordinary-looking cent into a much more interesting collector piece. The collector market becomes especially exciting at the highest grades. Professional certification gives collectors an established way to document the condition of an important coin, and the PCGS population information shows that certified 1965 SMS Lincoln cents exist across a range of grades and color designations. The 1965 SMS Red, Cameo, and Deep Cameo categories are particularly interesting because the finest examples are considerably scarcer than ordinary examples. PCGS records a historic auction result of $2,990 for a 1965 SMS Red Lincoln cent graded SP68, while its records also show a $4,140 auction record for a 1965 SMS Deep Cameo example. These are excellent examples of how a 1-cent coin can enter a completely different level of the collectible market when exceptional grade and special characteristics come together. A collector discovering a truly outstanding 1965 no-mint mark cent should therefore look beyond the simple face value of 1 cent and carefully consider whether it may represent a special mint set issue or another highly desirable certified example. When discussing current market value, it is important to understand that there is a huge difference between an ordinary circulated 1965 Philadelphia cent and an exceptionally preserved, certified special mint set specimen. Most regular 1965 cents are common because nearly 1.5 billion were produced, and their value generally remains close to their modest collectible value unless the coins. Number 4. The 1970 S. Lincoln Penny. At first glance, this 1-cent coin may appear to be an ordinary piece of American pocket change, but collectors know that the 1970 S issue can become especially interesting when its date, variety, preservation, color, and strike are examined carefully. The famous S mint mark tells us that this penny was produced at the San Francisco Mint, and the 1970 issue is particularly exciting because collectors encounter both small date and large date varieties. The truly impressive examples are those preserved with exceptional original surfaces, strong details, beautiful red color, and, in some cases, important double die characteristics. Professional grading records show that top-quality 1970 S cents can bring substantial premiums, with a 1970 S small date reaching an auction record of $2,464 in MS-67, while the large date has recorded $1,500 in MS-67 plus red. So, when you see a 1970 penny with an S mint mark in fantastic condition, do not rush past it. Take a closer look, because the combination of date, mint mark, variety, condition, and eye appeal is what can turn a simple 1-cent piece into a fascinating collectible with significant market attention. The story of the 1970 S Lincoln cent begins with the long-running Lincoln cent design that had become one of the most recognizable American coins. The obverse carries the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse of the 1970 issue features the Lincoln Memorial design associated with Frank Gasparo. The coin is approximately 19 millimeters in diameter and weighs about 3.11 grams, and the 1970 S regular strike cent was struck at the San Francisco Mint. PCGS lists a mintage of 693,192,814 for the 1970 S Lincoln cent, showing that the issue itself was produced in a large quantity. But this is exactly where serious collecting becomes interesting. A large original mintage does not mean that every example exists today in exceptional condition. Over the decades, countless coins were placed into circulation, exposed to handling, contact marks, environmental conditions, and surface wear. The surviving coins with outstanding preservation therefore attract a different level of attention, especially when they display strong original red color and excellent mint state characteristics. For collectors building Lincoln cent collections, the 1970 S is an appealing date because it offers more than just the basic year and mint mark. It offers recognizable varieties and condition-related opportunities that make this coin an exciting target for anyone studying modern Lincoln cents. One of the biggest reasons the 1970 S Lincoln cent has become such an interesting collector coin is the small date and large date distinction. These are not simply different conditions of the same coin, they are different date styles that collectors actively identify and collect. PCGS recognizes separate 1970 S small date and large date varieties, including brown, red, and red examples. The difference can be subtle when you first look at the coin, but once you know what to examine, the date becomes much more exciting. On the small date, the shape and positioning of the numerals create a noticeably different appearance, particularly around the 7 and 9. Collectors can study the relationship between the top of the 7 and the other digits, while another useful diagnostic involves the shape and direction of the loop of the 9. The small date is particularly famous among Lincoln cent enthusiasts because it gives the 1970 S issue an additional collecting dimension. Instead of simply asking whether you have a 1970 S penny, collectors begin asking a much more important question: do you have the small date or the large date? That simple identification can dramatically increase the interest surrounding the coin, especially when the example is preserved in an impressive grade. Now let us talk about the condition that can make a 1970 S Lincoln penny truly stand out. When collectors describe a coin as being in fantastic condition, they are generally looking for qualities such as sharp design details, attractive surfaces, minimal contact marks, strong luster, and excellent original color. 4 copper cents. Color is particularly important because professional grading services distinguish between brown, red, and red designations. A brilliant red example with beautiful original appearance can be far more desirable than an otherwise similar coin with significant discoloration or surface problems. The highest grades are difficult to achieve because even tiny marks can become important when a coin is compared with other superb examples. PCGS records show that the 1970 small date has been certified as high as MS67 red, with only a limited number reaching that elite level, while the large date has also reached MS67 plus red. This is why a fantastic-looking 1970 penny deserves careful attention. If the coin has remained bright, clean-looking, sharply struck, and exceptionally well preserved, its collector appeal can rise dramatically. A beautiful coin is not simply attractive to look at. Its preservation can place it into a much more competitive section of the Lincoln cent market. Another exciting part of the 1970s story is the presence of recognized double-die varieties. Certain 1970s Lincoln cents were struck with notable double-die characteristics, and these varieties can command much stronger prices than ordinary examples. PCGS identifies the 1970s large date double-die obverse, including FS 103, as a recognized variety. This is extremely important for anyone examining a 1970s penny because the date and mint mark alone are not always the end of the investigation. Collectors should examine the lettering and date carefully under good lighting and, when necessary, magnification. A genuine double-die variety is different from ordinary machine doubling or damage, so identification should be done carefully and preferably confirmed by a professional grading or attribution service. The market can become especially interesting when a recognized variety combines with excellent condition and attractive original color. For example, published market information for the 1970s. Number 5. The 1973 D. Lincoln Penny, a 1-cent coin carrying the famous D mint mark of the Denver Mint. At first glance, this penny may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but collectors know that condition, color, strike quality, certification, and unusual minting characteristics can completely change the story. The 1973 D. Lincoln cent was produced in enormous numbers, with PCGS recording a mintage of 3,549,576,588 pieces, so the real excitement comes when you find an example that has survived in exceptional condition. And this is where the hunt becomes fascinating. A normal example may be modestly valued, while an extraordinary, professionally graded example can attract serious collector attention. So if you have a beautiful 1973 D penny with sharp details, brilliant red color, outstanding surfaces, and an impressive overall appearance, do not rush to dismiss it simply because it says 1 cent. Stay with me because we are going to explore the history, design, condition, collector demand, auction evidence, potential value, and the important details that could make a spectacular 1973 D. Lincoln penny stand out in today's collecting market. The history of the 1973 D. Lincoln penny begins with one of the most famous designs in American coinage. The Lincoln cent had already become a legendary part of American history by the time this coin was struck. The Lincoln portrait was originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the memorial reverse used on this era of cents was designed by Frank Gasparo. The 1973 D belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series that began in 1959 and continued for decades, making these coins especially popular with collectors who enjoy assembling complete year and mint mark collections. The Denver Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents during this period, and the 1973 D represented a huge portion of that production. According to PCGS, the coin has a diameter of 19 millimeters, weighs 3.11 grams, has a plain edge, and was struck in a copper composition listed as 95% copper and 5% zinc. The small d below the date identifies Denver as the minting facility. That tiny letter is extremely important to collectors because it separates the 1973 D from the Philadelphia and San Francisco issues of the same year. Every time you hold a 1973 D Lincoln cent, you are holding a small piece of the everyday monetary history of the United States during the early 1970s, a period when these coins were being produced for massive circulation. Today, decades later, the most attractive survivors can become fascinating collectibles because collectors are no longer looking at these pennies merely as money. They are studying them as historical objects whose condition tells a story. Now let us talk about the unique features that make the 1973 D. Lincoln penny so interesting. The first thing you should examine is the date, because 1973 must be clearly visible and correctly identified. Next, look underneath the date for the small D mint mark. Once you confirm that you have the Denver issue, examine Lincoln's portrait carefully. A premium quality example should have strong detail, a clean appearance, and excellent overall eye appeal. The reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial, along with the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. On a fantastic condition specimen, collectors pay close attention to the sharpness of the memorial, the lettering, the rims, and the overall strike. One of the most important characteristics in this series is color designation. Professional grading services distinguish between brown, and red examples, and a bright red appearance can be particularly attractive to collectors when combined with a very high mint state grade. PCGS lists separate 1973 D varieties for BN, RB, and RD designations. This means that two pennies from the same year and mint can look dramatically different to a collector. A brilliant, original-looking red 1973 D with outstanding surfaces can be far more exciting than an ordinary circulated example. The combination of date, D mint mark, original color, sharp strike, clean surfaces, and high grade is what creates the kind of presentation that can make collectors stop and take a second look. The condition of your 1973 D Lincoln penny is where the story becomes even more exciting. When collectors discuss a coin being in very fantastic condition, they are essentially talking about a coin that has exceptional visual quality and very little evidence of circulation or handling. Professional grading can place an uncirculated coin into different mint state levels, and those individual grade points can make a substantial difference in a marketplace. PCGS notes that 1973 D cents are common in circulated grades and through MS-64, while MS-65 examples become more difficult to find. MS-66 examples are scarce, and MS-67 examples are genuinely difficult to locate. PCGS also reports that fewer than 24 examples were known at MS-67 or higher in its reference population assessment, showing why the highest grades attract so much attention. This is the key reason a beautiful 1973 D should not automatically be judged simply by its age. It is not an extremely old coin compared with classic 19th century cents, but age alone is not the only factor that determines collector value. Population, grade, color, eye appeal, preservation, and auction demand can matter enormously. A coin that spent decades protected inside a collection, mint set, or other safe environment may retain the original appearance that collectors want to see. When a coin reaches the upper mint state levels, even a tiny mark can become important because there are fewer opportunities to find examples with a complete package of strong strike, excellent surfaces, beautiful color, and exceptional preservation. The collector demand story becomes particularly interesting when we look at actual auction records. This is where the 1973 D Lincoln penny demonstrates that a small 1-cent coin can sometimes command a surprisingly strong price when it reaches an elite grade or has a significant minting error. PCGS records an auction result of $4,994. Thanks for watching and happy selecting. Subscribe my channel, like videos, and share videos.